This is video number 2. In this video you're going to learn all about input output in Python. I'm going to cover the following points in these videos. First, you're going to learn how to set up your working folder. You're going to do a little bit of programming in this video. You're going to learn the general concept of input and output, and you're going to learn about functions. It's just about all about function. And you're going to see what are the input output functions available in Python. And most importantly, now in addition to learning Python, you have to learn to use some technical words in your communication. So this you will be learning gradually. So you don't have to remember the technical words, it should come naturally. So this comes only with the experience. The more you code, the more comfortable you'll be using these words. So setting up a working folder is the very first thing you have to do before you start any programming. You have to think in terms of project. So from now on, if you're doing Python programming, think about a project. So everything is a project. So the project is just a concept, but a project is nothing but a folder in your computer. In fact, the project is a concept used in the PyCharm software. So project is a collection of Python program files and the data files. Yes, you can have more than one Python files. You're going to learn how to program in multiple files. In fact, gradually, probably by the end of this video series, you might end up having a project with 20 or 30 program files. You can also have more than one data files, and you can also have subfolders inside the project folder. So I'm not going to make this concept of project folder very complex. We will probably use this subfolders in the future videos. So for example, you can have one main folder called Python programs. This is like a umbrella, and under that you can have a number of subfolders. Say for example, I can have a subfolder called assignment 1, and in this subfolder you can have a number of Python files and data files, and one more subfolder called assignment 2, and you can have a number of Python files and data files. So likewise, all your Python programs are inside one single folder, and it's very obvious the advantages of having a setup like this. You can back up your project, back up all your work very easily. Everything is just one single folder. You can just drag and drop into your memory stick, and also it's very easy to locate. Now assume that in your course you're doing multiple programming languages, so you can create one more main folder, say for example C++, and underneath you can have each subfolder as a project. You can have this subfolder for your assignment 1, where you can have a multiple C++ files, one more subfolder for your second assignment, and you can have a number of C++ files. Likewise, if you're learning Java language, you can have one more the main folder for Java, and underneath you can have various subfolders, and each subfolder you can think it as a project, and each subfolder will have a number of Java files and is corresponding the data files. This is just an example of the folder structure you can have. So I'm going to have a main folder called My Projects, and under this two subfolders, Lab1, Lab2. Inside the Lab1 subfolder, and keep in mind we are using this concept of project, so every project from this point onwards, so this is a project which is in the subfolder called Lab2. This is one more project which is subfolder called Lab1, and we cannot call this as a project. This is just a container. This is just like a root folder or a main folder where all Python programs are kept within this main folder. So inside this project, so you can see there are two files, Python files, and three data files. Here also you can see three Python files, and keep in mind all Python files will have the extension .py, and you can have the data files, and data files can have any extensions. So in this project called Lab2, you have got three Python files and three data files. So I'm going to show you how to create or how to set up your folder structure using PyCharm. So what I'm going to do here is create a container folder that's like a main root folder. I'm going to call that as Python projects. I'm going to create this in my Windows desktop. You can create anywhere you want. You can create in your C drive or a D drive, but to keep things simple, I'm going to create this folder in my desktop. I'm going to start PyCharm. We're going to create a new project, and keep in mind we are going to use this concept called project. Everything is a project in PyCharm. I'm going to create a new project called Lab1, and this will be inside the main folder called the Python projects. I'm going to close the project. I'm going to create one more new project called Lab2, again inside the Python project folder. I'm going to close that. So basically now in this exercise, so you'll be learning how to create a project, close the project, create a new project, close the project. Now what you see here is my Windows 10 desktop. I've got a shortcut for PyCharm. I'm going to create a new folder called Python projects, and this is my container. All my Python projects will be stored inside this main folder. Next I'm going to run PyCharm. So after you start PyCharm, you will see this window. So from here you're going to click create a new project. So we are going to keep all other things as it is. So here this is the place where you're going to tell PyCharm where you want to create the project and what is the name of the project. So here if you click, so we know that our main folder is in the desktop. So choose this second icon called desktop directory, and underneath is this one. So choose OK. So after that I'm going to put a slash and give the name of my project. I'm going to call this as a Lab1. So it's very common to have the name of the directory or the folder, or sorry, the name of the project in the capital letter. So I've got capital L and Lab1. So we still going to have this create main.py welcome script. This is ticked. We have seen what this tick does. It creates a default Python file which prints like a hello world type of message. So click this create. Now sometimes depending on the speed of your laptop or a PC, it might take a couple of minutes to see the screen. So this is what happens when you create a new empty project. So there are a couple of things you have to understand here. So I'm quickly going to go through this window. So on the left hand side is where you see your project contents. So you can click here and expand and see what it is. Most often, we don't play with these things. So if you click the top folder, so underneath that, PyCharm has created a folder called VNV. It's a virtual environment. We're not going to play with that at this moment of time. So this is the default file, Python file the PyCharm has created. So I'm going to close this and we're going to try one more called lab2. So go to file and choose close project. So again we are back to this screen. So click new project. So because we already created one project in this folder, desktop folder, so this is auto populated and this is the default name of the project. I'm going to change this and give as lab2 and everything I'm going to keep as is. Say create. So again, depending on the speed of your PC, this will take a minute or two. So we have got our project called lab2 ready. We're not going to do anything at this moment of time. Go back, close, and we're going to create one more new project. So change the name of the project as lab3 and still keep this virtual environment, and going to click on the create. So we have got 3 projects, and in all the 3 projects we have used the concept called virtual environment. So at this time we'll go and see what is inside this Python project folder. If you double click, so you got 3 folders here, lab1, lab2, lab3, and if you open lab1 and you can see there are 2 subfolders. These subfolders are created by PyCharm, so we don't have to do anything with this, and this is the single Python file which is automatically created. So it's good to know what kind of memory space or disk space these projects takes. So keep in mind we have used what is called as a virtual Python environment. I'm going to explain in my future videos what is the virtual Python environment, but at this time you just have to know, is it going to take a lot of space? Let's see how much space this has taken. Click lab1 and go to the properties, and you can see that each project, an empty project literally, has taken around 15 MB disk space, which is nothing when compared to the amount of disk space you can buy these days. So you might have noticed all the text over here, they got a bigger font. What I've done is I went to this file and settings, and if you go to the editor section here and click on the font, I've set the font size as 18. So if you think if you've got a big monitor and if you see all these characters are very small, you just try to go and increase the font size. So you're going to understand the concept of function. So this is a very important concept. In Python, everything is a function, just function and function. So you use function, you write functions, you group functions together, you share functions with your friends, and your friends gives you their functions. So everything, every line of program you do in Python is inside a function. So I made few examples to make you understand what these functions are. So take for example a vending machine. So this is a free vending machine. You got snacks, all the snacks are the same type, so you got no choice. So the way this vending machine work is you just go in front of the machine and press this button, and after you press that, you're going to get a snack. So this is a snack collector. So here I've written the sequence of operations you're going to do. So press the button and collect the snack. So you have to learn how to write these type of diagrams. So this is very simple. There's no technology or science behind this concept. It's just a theory, just a story. So this vending machine I'm representing as a rectangle. Call this machine 1. Look at the way you're interacting with this vending machine. So you have to press this button. That means you have to put something into the vending machine, and the vending machine gives out a snack. So this is how you represent the vending machine. So you can call this as a model of the vending machine. So the button you press is called as an input to the machine. So the input to the machine is the button press, and the output of this machine is a snack. So I can call this vending machine has a single input and a single output function. It's as easy as that. So this is the next example of vending machine again. So here you got a vending machine which has got a different kind of food. You got fruits, you got a snacks, you got a chocolates, and you got some water bottles. The way this vending machine works is you have to first choose one of the type here. You have to choose out of the 4 buttons. You have to press one of this button. After that, you're going to press this select button. You will get the food you have selected. Look at the interaction with this machine. First you press the type of the food, that is one of these 4 buttons. Then press the select button, that's over here, and you collect the food from the tray from here. So I can model this machine with this rectangle. The rectangle called machine 2. The input to this vending machine is the type of the food you want, and the select, the button you select here, and you collect the output. So the output of this vending machine is the food you have selected. So this vending machine can be thought of having 2 inputs and 1 output. So I got one more example. This time I got a coffee machine. So I'm going to write the coffee machine here. So this is the model of a coffee machine. So by now you know that the arrows on the top are the input to this coffee machine. So you're going to input the strength of the coffee, the quantity of sugar you want, the quantity of milk you want, and any additional flavor you want. And the coffee machine produces a coffee cup. Now you can say that this machine takes 4 input and produces 1 output. So next I got the mathematical functions. So by now you know what the functions are. A function is just a name of a block. It takes 1 or more input and produces 1 output. So at this moment of time we are going to consider function that has got only 1 output. So here I got few examples. So this function you can call square root. So now we can start calling these blocks as a function. So if you come across a rectangle box, you can call this as a function. The name of the function is what is inside this rectangle box. It's called a square root. So it takes input. It has got 1 input and it produces 1 output. So by now you know what this square root function does. It just converts or gives you the square root of this input number. So one more function called area of rectangle. It takes two input, produces one output, which is the area of this rectangle, A times B. I got one more function called transformer design. It takes three input. It takes the primary voltage, the primary current, and the secondary current. So it computes what is the secondary voltage. So this is again a function with the three input and one output. So next I'm going to discuss the general idea about input and output. So most often when you write a Python program, you will be processing some input data. So the input can come from your keyboard, or the input can come from files from your PC, or the file can be in a remote server and you pull that file through internet, or you might get a data from a different program altogether, or you might get data from external device like a scanner or a sensor, or you can get data from various other means. So during this course you're going to learn how to read data from the keyboard, how to read data from the files from the PC, how to get data from a remote server using internet, and how to get data from different programs, and how to get data from an external device. So likewise, your program will also produce some output. So the output can be showing something on your computer screen, or the output can be written to a file in your PC, or you can produce the output into a file in a remote server, or you can send the output to a different program running on a different machine or the same machine, or you can send the output to an external device like a scanner, like a photocopier or a printer, or it can be you can send output to any other place, any other device. So you're going to learn how to send output to a computer screen, and how to send output to a file, and how to send output to a file in remote server, and how to send output to a different program, and how to send the output to the scanner as well, or external device as well. See, the concept of functions are so important. You cannot program without understanding what they are. So this is just a general concept about a function. So at this stage you can think the functions as a ready to use programs. Every language comes with hundreds or thousands of functions. Likewise, even Python comes with thousands of functions. So functions, if you take a single function, they do a specific task. We've already seen some of the mathematical functions like a square root. So you have this square root function. So square root does only one task, that is, you provide a input number, say 16, the square root will output 4. Now these are something you have to remember. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So if there is a function, if you come across a function written by you or written by somebody else, if it's available, then just use it. These are some of the buzzwords about functions. You have to I would say you have to understand these buzzwords. So you'll come across these buzzwords in any programming languages you start reading. So first thing is, everybody says write a function. So what does this write a function means? See, write a function is also called as a function definition. So in most programming books you'll come across this buzzword function definition. So function definition means writing a function. So again, these definitions or these sentences what I put here, it's too early, it's at the early stage. So you just have to remember these at this moment of time. Gradually, when we do lots of programming, probably now you'll have a better, a different kind of defining these buzzwords. So you come across somebody saying use a function. So use a function is also called as call a function. So calling a function is same as using that function. Defining a function is same as writing a function. How do you identify a function? How do you know whether something is a function or not a function? So the simplest method is, if you come across any name followed by a parenthesis, then you can say that it's a function. So there's one more name for function which is very common in this world of object-oriented programming. It is called as the methods. So we will start using methods, maybe in my future videos when you start doing object-oriented programming in Python. But at this moment in time, if you come across a name followed by a parenthesis, the parenthesis can be empty or it can have something inside that. You can treat that as a function. For example, temperature parenthesis. So this follows what I mentioned here, any name followed by parenthesis. So here the function, the name of the function, or you can say the function is called temperature, and it has no input parameters. So again, you have to get used to these words called parameters. So sometimes they're also called as arguments and parameters, and these are the old school definitions. So at this moment of time you can consider parameters and arguments, both are same. So here temperature and empty bracket, you can say that this is a function and this function does not take any parameters. So if you want to put a block diagram for this, you can put a rectangle and there's nothing on the top. You can put an arrow here and you can say none. So you can say that this function takes nothing, and you can put a down arrow here, this is output. So at this moment in time you can assume that all functions produce a single output. What about this second one? sqrt, in the bracket, in the parenthesis I got x. So the function called sqrt, and it takes one input parameter. A function called tax, in the bracket, in the parenthesis I got two parameters called gross and deduction. So this, when you come across this line, you can say that the function is called tax, or the name of the function is tax, and it takes two input parameters. So next you're going to learn the input and output functions available in Python. So in Python there's a function called print. As you can see here, now you know how to identify whether something is a function or not. So if you look at this word is called print followed by the parenthesis. So now we know this is a function. So what this print does? So the main purpose of this print function is to output data on your computer screen. Again, at this moment of time, think that the print can only output to a computer screen. That's it. So this function looks very simple, but is very complex inside. Just the information, you don't have to go more into this now. and you will start appreciating this print function only when you start using it. Now I'm going to go through this slide, and we are going to jump into PyCharm and start doing some coding, start understanding what the print function does. So this is what you'll be doing. You're going to open the project called lab1. If you remember, we have created 3 empty projects, and we're going to practice and learn everything about the print function. So we're going to use existing main.py file. So you know that when you create an empty project in PyCharm, it automatically creates a file called a Python file, and you have to start calling not just a file, call a Python file, because a file can also have a data. So this is a Python file. After that, you're going to learn one more function called input. Again, okay, you know this is a function now. You got the word input followed by the parenthesis. So this function is used to read data from the keyboard. Again, at this time you just have to think that input can read data from the keyboard. It can do more than this. You can read one or more values from the keyboard. So in order to practice input, we are going to do the following things. You're going to open the same project called lab1 and practice reading data from the keyboard. But this time we are going to take a different approach. You're going to add a new Python file called read.py. You're going to learn how to read a single data. You're going to learn how to read 2 pieces of data and 3 pieces. So like we did before, you can understand function in this block diagram. So print, now we know it's a function because it has got a parenthesis here. So in the first scenario, in this scenario, the print function takes no input parameter, but it produces some output. In the second scenario, print takes one input parameter, produces the output. In this scenario, it takes 2 parameters or 2 input, produces output. So I've been using this word called parameters. So again, as I mentioned before, you can call parameters or you can call arguments, or you can just say input. You can say that print function takes 2 input. Here print function takes 1 input. Here print function takes no input. And in the last scenario, print function takes multiple inputs. So what you have to keep in mind in case of the print function is, print is a function in Python that can take no input up to n number of inputs. So this is how we can understand the input function. Now I mentioned before, input is a function in Python that is used to read data from the keyboard. So here in the first scenario, input, again, see the way I describe this input function now. So you can use input function without any input parameters. You can call input function with only one parameter. In both the scenarios, input function outputs a single value. This is the output is, it has got one. So back into PyCharm program, this is what we left before. So if you want, you can adjust the width of these windows. On the left hand side is where you see all your project files along with all this automatically created environment by PyCharm. On the right hand side is where you type the program. Now we call PyCharm is a Python editor. Again, we are going to learn all those things in the bottom here. So you'll be using the terminal, and other one is the Python console. So you won't be using much Python console in this video series. So you can use this thing to learn Python line by line. So we'll come back to this in my future videos. So you'll be using the terminal. Terminal is like your like your MS-DOS, a DOS prompt or a command window, or if you come from a Linux or a Mac background, it is the terminal. Now, something interesting to note here is when you click on the terminal, you can see the path of the folder. So this path is the folder where you saved this project. Now the last project was lab 3 and it was in this path. Now what we are going to do is we are going to open the project lab 1. So first close this, then after that you can choose this option here, open. Now you have to go to where you have saved lab 1. So we know that all our Python projects are inside this main folder called Python projects. So this is lab 1. Click on that and say OK. So we're back into this lab 1. Now what you see on the right hand side, this is the content of the file called main.py, this one. And at this stage, you don't need any of these things, so you can just use Control A and just delete them. So we're going to learn the print function Python. The way you do that is just type print in the bracket. I'm going to print hello PyCharm and press an enter. Say print. I'm going to print some number this time. Enter. Print. I'm going to print something called true. I'm going to print one more number maybe 34.5767. Sorry. Okay. So this make it capital T for the time being. Okay. So we have typed 4 lines, and in each line we are calling the function called print. So remember those buzzwords I mentioned about. You can speak in a little bit about what's going on here. So print is a Python function. So it is a ready-made function that is provided along with the Python package, you would say. So as a developer, you are using that function. So you don't care what this, what the internal structure of the print, you don't care. So one thing you know is what the print does. And keep in mind, before you use a function, you must know what it does. So I know that, or the Python documentation has said, print something or display something on the screen. So here I'm printing something within the double quotes. You can see here, print double quotes, some message called hello PyCharm. I'm printing a number 200. I'm printing a value called true. I'm printing a value called 45.67. Now once you have finished typing the program, you have to run it. So the way you do that is, if you see this on the top right corner, the green arrow, just had to click that. So your program will be run, executed, and the output of a program is what you see in output screen here, run. So here it says, so every line in Python program does something. So here print outputs whatever is inside the parenthesis on the screen. So you got that. This is the first output of the first print. This is the output of the second print. This is the output of the third print. This is the output of the fourth print. So I'm going to insert a print that takes no input. Now see what's going to happen. Now just a print. So if you look at here, just a print with nothing prints a blank line. So if you want to output something on the screen, and if you want a blank line, you know how to do it now. Just use a print without anything. This is one of the way to print a blank line. There are so many other ways which you're going to learn in my future videos. So next thing what you would ask is, why do I need so many print? Can I not print all in one line? Maybe you can. We'll try that. Print. I would put hello PyCharm, comma, say 200, comma, true, comma, 45.67. So what we just did here is, now this is a print. Again, we are calling the print function with multiple parameters. If you remember the block diagram, so you can visualize this printf, sorry, the print function, not printf, that's a C programming. So you can visualize the print here has got the first parameter, the second parameter, third and the fourth parameter. So now the the print function takes 4 parameters, 4 input parameters. So if you run this, just to run, you can see that everything will appear in one single line. Now you might notice some kind of a wiggly line here. So this is something about the formatting. Okay, so what Python or the PyCharm expects you to do is, so it expects a nice a space after the comma. That makes your code much readable, so nothing wrong. And the last line says, please enter a new line. So that's it. So all the wiggly lines are gone. So this looks cleaner on your screen rather than those wiggly lines. Now run the program. So you got the same thing. So this is what you need to know about the print function at this moment of time. So you want to print something on the screen, use a print function. Print, you can call print. Now I'm using the word called call. So all these 6 lines, what we have done is calling the print function, which is in Python. So you can say which is in the Python package, without knowing how the print functions is written, how complex is that. We don't care at this moment of time. Just keep in mind, print, you can use a print to print something on the screen. Now before we move on to the input function, I would like to point out a couple of things here which you will be coming across again and again. The first value that's in the double quotes, we call this value as a string, and the second one is a number, and the last is also number. But there's a difference between these two numbers. We call this as an integer and this as a floating point number. And this one, true or a false, it can be true or a false, we call this as a boolean. So these are some of the you'll come across these types like a string, boolean, int, float. You'll come across this throughout your career in Python. Now before you start using the input function in Python, so you need to know a little bit more information about how these input functions are used. See, now we know input functions are used to read data from the keyboard. So you can write that thing here. It's a read the data from keyboard. But when you get the data from keyboard, you have to store somewhere in the memory, otherwise it's lost. Now this is the right side, this is the memory of a computer. Now the way you use the input function is, whatever data is read from the input function, you're going to put it inside a variable. So variables are a named place in the memory. So I would say like this. So assume that input, you type 100 in the keyboard. This 100 is put here in this memory. So this part of the memory is given a name called A, and this has got a nice buzzword called variable. So variables are a named memory location. Memory is a named part of the memory. So likewise, I can say B equals input in the bracket. Now this line, anything you type on the keyboard, say I typed, say hello, okay. Now what happens is, this message hello is stored in a different part of the memory, and I'm going to call this part of the memory as a B, and inside there the message hello is stored. So likewise, you can use, say C equals input. You're not going to use this left arrow and these things. This is how you describe the input function. So whatever input on the right hand side, whatever the input function reads from the keyboard is put it back into this this symbol or this memory called C. So here. So in other words, most often, or I would say always, wherever you have got an input function, wherever you call input function, you will always put that value into a variable. So the right hand side is where you have the input function, the left hand side is where you have the memory location. So this is also called as an assignment statement. Assignment. These are again the buzzwords, but you have to use this. This is a simplest statement I would call this an assignment statement, where you got A is equal to B. So whatever is the value on the right hand side is stored into the variable A. Probably this background you can start playing with input now. So we're going to see how to use a input function Python now. You're still in the lab 1 project, and right click on that and say new and choose Python file. Give the name of the file as read.py, enter. So you can see here a new file is just added. It's underneath the main. Now on the top, these are called tabs. So in PyCharm you can have multiple files open at the same time. You can change the file you're typing by clicking on this tab. So I'm going to use an input function, but now we know that when you read any data from the keyboard, you have to put that. It's not a must here, but there's no purpose of reading the data from the keyboard. So there are scenarios where you might read something from keyboard and ignore it. I'm going to show you that in my future videos. And just type enter. Now what we have done so far is we have called the function called input. That's on the right hand side of the equality, or of the equal sign, sorry. Whatever value you read from the keyboard, we are putting back to A. This is, we already explained in my previous slide, where we spoke about the data going into the memory called A, and these are called variables. So you have to start using this buzzword called variables. From now on you can say A is a variable. Variable is a name given to some part of the memory. Now if you see these again wiggly lines here, that means you have to put some nice formatting space. Give a space there, give a space here. This is more readable. Now we just typed a line. We have to run and see what happens. Now to run this read.py file, right click on the read.py file and choose this option called run read. Now when you read that, automatically your run tab at the bottom pops out. Now probably if the cursor, this flashing thing is waiting there, or if it doesn't, you just click there. I'm going to type 45 and press enter. Now if you see this line process finished and exit with code 0, so that means your program has finished. Your program has finished its execution. There's nothing more to execute. It has terminated. Now we just entered the number 45, and that 45 has gone into this variable A. So I'm going to use our old friend print to show what is in that variable. So here again, print is a function. It's a Python function. I'm calling that with one input, whereas input is a function I'm calling without any input. So let's say what these two lines are going to do. So probably once you run this read.py, you will see this read configuration on the top, this one. So if you see here, then next time onwards you can just start hitting this, the green, the play button. So here, play, click here, I'm going to click here in the run tab, say 60, enter. Look at that. The number you typed is green in color, and the second number 60 we got it because of the line print. See, when you run Python program, so Python executes every line by line. It starts from the top of the file, runs this line. So this line does read data from keyboard, that puts the data in variable A, and this one print, you know what print does, whatever you put inside the parenthesis, it just spits it on the screen. So here A means is a variable, so whatever value stored in A, that's been printed here. So likewise you can continue this for some more time. One more input I'm going to take from the keyboard, enter, and say print, and say B. You can put one more input C and say print C. That's it. So now we have got 6 lines of coding. Again, if you see this wiggly lines, just give a spacing before and after the equal sign. Now run. Okay. And if you go and click in the thing in the run window, type 10, enter, you got 10. 15, enter, again you got 15. Say 20, enter. After printing the last line, it says your processing finished. Now, so you know now how to read data from the keyboard, but you might have noticed. So you might have noticed something, something strange here. If I run this program again, you know that this run something is waiting for you to type, but it doesn't tell you why it's waiting. Neither it tells you what type of data you are supposed to type. I can type A, B, C, D, just not number. I can type something else. I can type this thing. I can type anything I like. So most of the time, whenever you use an input function, you will have a message just before that telling the user what to type. That's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to tell the user, okay, enter a number, but I'm going to tell him what kind of number is that, whether it's an age, whether it's a salary, or whether it's a name. So most often when at this early stage of your programming, you first tell the user or give a message to user what to type on the screen. So I'm going to use this function called print again. We know this Wolfram print. I would say enter your name. That's it. Now these two works as a pair. The first one tells enter your name, and the second line will get the data from the keyboard. Now we'll pair one more. So you can just print probably these three. What we're doing now is these three goes as a pair. So whatever I've typed in the second line, it's spitted out on the screen. Next, I would say one more message, a nice message to the user saying that, okay, what's your age? This is a nice message. This will input data from the screen, from the keyboard, sorry, and this will. You can keep any blank lines in between. So sometimes students do a lot. Again, too many blanks may not be good as well. One more print message I'm going to give. I would say, what is your course name? Okay. Now if I run this program now, it makes some sense to user. Look at that. You got a nice prompt saying enter your name. Say I'm putting something. This is my name. What's your age? 45. What's your course name? Say computer science. Enter. So this is like an interactive program. You ask the user, or you show message to user, get the data from the user. So this is a kind of a very interactive program. So these type of programs you have to start to make, rather than just waiting, okay, just showing a blinking cursor on the screen. A user doesn't know what to type in. See, this Python program is known for shortcuts. There are so many shortcuts in Python. Now sometimes using shortcuts make your program less readable, so you have to keep that in mind. So I'm going to show you how it is possible to combine these two lines. As I mentioned before, I would say more or every input function is preceded by a print function, because print tells the user what to type on the screen, whether to type a number, whether to type a string, whether to type a floating point number, something like that. Now I'm going to add one more file to this same project. So right click and say project Python file. So this time I'm going to call the function as input output, or you can just keep it simple, inout.py. So it doesn't matter what name you give here, but keep in mind it's highly recommended that you give a very nice meaningful name. You don't want to call a Python file called abzc something, okay. So here I'm going to do exactly the same thing whatever we did here. Probably it's best that you copy Control A, Control C and type here Control V. Now I'm going to show a shortcut. So this time you're going to see the second variation of the input function. If you remember back in my earlier part of the video, input, see this, we are calling the input function with no parameters. Also mention input also takes one parameter, that is the message, that's a string. So I'm going to copy this, enter your name, Control X and Control V. Now just remove this thing, okay. So here input, you can call this as a prompt message. That's what the documentation says, input prompt. Now when you run this file, again you can see our file is called inout.py. It's not showing here, so you cannot just jump in and click here. First time you right click and say run inout. Look at that. So immediately you see that enter your name prompt. See, the very first line in your program is this input. So whatever is in this input parenthesis is first shown on the screen. Now you can type in your name, enter. The rest, okay, it follows whatever we have done before. However, I'm going to stop here and change this program. So if you go and see the stop here, this icon stop, you can just hit that. That stops your program execution, and just do the same thing. Just Control X, Control V, and get rid of that. Again, take this out. Get rid of that, okay. So this looks neater now. Now run, enter your name Sam, enter your age 18, enter your course name, call this as biomed, enter, job done. So now you know what is a function is. Python comes with thousands of functions. You've just learned two functions, that's the input output function, and you know what print function does, you know what the input function does, and you know how to use input function along with the prompt. So that's all I've got in this video. Thanks for watching. I'm looking forward to see you in my next video.